So you're in a hand, and in this exact spot, calling a $600 bet at 2-5 is exactly the same as calling a $180 bet at 1-3. It's the same ranges, same pot odds, same 52 cards. But as you reach for your chips, you feel that anxious feeling in your chest that you've felt many times before. At 1-3, this decision was just a standard poker decision. In this exact spot, it feels heavier, somehow more unnerving, more uncertain, more intimidating. So you doubt yourself and you pull your punches and you become cautious. Most players actually think they're being responsible, but in reality, they're just letting fear wear a disguise. And that disguise is bleeding their win rate dry. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to tell the difference between a genuine calculated decision and a decision made by a bankroll that's playing you instead of protecting you. And understanding the difference will make you a lot of money at the tables. So stick around, because that's what separates the grinders from the pros. This is vintonpoker. I'm Vinton. Welcome back to the channel. My whole mission here is to help you make sharper, more profitable decisions at the table by cutting the emotions out of the equation and replace them with a repeatable thought process you can easily execute at the tables. In this video, we're going to talk about a very hidden and expensive leak in the game. It's one that doesn't really show up on any stat sheets or any poker tracker. It's called scared money, and it's really not about money at all. So let's get right into it. Imagine a situation where you've got top pair, a strong kicker, and a calling station checks to you on the river. At your normal stakes, you would fire 2/3 pot bet without even thinking about it. You've made this kind of value bet 100 times before. You know worse hands will call often enough to make it profitable. But then, after you move up and you're now at 2-5, when you find yourself in the same exact hand, same opponent, same board, same spot, this time you check back the river and you tell yourself you're putt controlling. You're being cautious. You're playing a low variance game. Well, my friend, that's a big, big problem. Why? Because the only thing that determines whether betting is correct or not is whether worse hands call often enough to make betting more profitable than checking. And that's really a question about the villain's range and nothing more. It has absolutely nothing to do with how uncomfortable a bet makes you feel just because the absolute value of the bet got bigger. Let me use another example that will make it more clear. Say you missed the draw on the river, but you've got a solid read against this weak, tight villain that he's going to fold more than about half the times. The pot is $600 and you're considering a $400 bluff. You run the math. Your required fold frequency is your risk divided by risk plus your reward. It's about 40%. So your read says he folds about 55% of the times. Well, obviously 55% is way higher than 40. This bluff clearly prints money. Passing on this bluff because it's $400 and it feels too much, it's an absolute disaster. It's not caution. Essentially, if you pass on this bluff, you're letting the size of the bet change a decision that the math already gave you a green light on. One player inside my coaching community kept folding almost every big river bet after moving up in stakes in very similar spots. He thought he was being disciplined. Then I sat down with him and we reviewed his hands together, and what we found was astonishing. He was folding bluff catchers that only needed to be right 1 in 4 times to make money simply because the bet felt too big. That's scared money. A fold out of fear says, I can't lose another $400. But a fold out of logic says, the specific villain doesn't arrive here with enough bluffs. And from the outside, those two folds kind of look exactly the same. But only one of them is actually based on solid poker strategy and a solid thought process. Let's look at another situation, one before you even see the flop. Let's say you pick up a hand that's a clear 3-bet at your normal stakes, but after moving up, you decide to just flat call behind. because raising maybe felt scary or maybe expensive or too risky. Now look at what that safety actually buys you. After flatting instead of a much called for 3-bet for a good size, you will find yourself out of position in a multi-way pot with no initiative, playing a weaker version of the same exact hand that if you played it heads up in a 3-bet pot, it would be a much better spot. But instead, you're in the soup fighting to survive. Here's the thing. In poker, the question you should ask is never which option risks fewer chips. The question to really ask is which line makes the most amount of money against this opener and with the players behind. The answer to those questions aren't always exactly the same answer, and in fact, they often are not. Sometimes the lower variance decision is also the lower profit decision. And if the only reason you chose the lower variance decision was because a 3-bet felt too expensive, well, that's not discipline. That's scared money making decisions for you. That's just bad poker. Here's another spot you may recognize. If you keep buying in for 40 to 50 big blinds because a full buy-in, it feels way too dangerous, you've already changed your strategy before the first hand has ever been dealt. You've given up leverage. You've given up your ability to win the biggest pots against the weakest players. And you've done it for one reason and one reason only, because the money felt too expensive to risk. If a full buy-in at whatever stake that you're at feels emotionally unacceptable, the solution isn't a short stack strategy. The solution is admitting that this isn't your stakes yet. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. You need to move down. Before we go on, if you're getting value from this video, give it a like and share it with someone else who's also serious about becoming a crusher just like you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any future episodes. I appreciate every single one of you who contributes. Back to scared money and back to the question from the very beginning. Why does identical spots in two different stakes suddenly feel different? One feels threatening. The other is just another day at the poker table. Here's why. The moment your brain stops treating a value bet, a call, a bluff as a poker decision and starts treating it as a personal finance issue, personal money, you're in trouble. You stop playing the game and you start protecting your money. And once that switch flips, the rest happens almost automatically, fast and dramatically, and it's not good. You stop making thin value bets. You stop pulling triggers on profitable bluffs. You start folding because the money feels too painful. And then your win rate drops. Your bankroll shrinks. And the next time you sit down at the game, the fear is even stronger than it was before. That's a trap. That's a downward spiral. Fear creates worse decisions. Worse decisions create more fear. And then something else happens that most players never really connect together. Your lower win rate increases your risk of ruin. The mathematical chance that normal variance eventually wipes out your entire bankroll. So, scared money doesn't just cost you just profit. It quietly makes the exact outcome you're trying to avoid more likely and I dare say inevitable. That tightness in your chest at 2-5 is never really about strategy. It's about your brain turning poker decisions into personal finance decisions. And here's where I think a lot of poker advice gets it wrong. A lot of people will tell you to push through the pain, to trust yourself, to take the shot. That sounds motivating, and it may be, but it's incomplete. Fear isn't the enemy. Fear is information. You should listen to it. Sometimes fear is telling you that you're underrolled. Other times, fear is telling you the game is just too tough. Sometimes it's telling you that your strategy is changing because the money suddenly feels too important. The point isn't learning to ignore the fear. The real lesson here is learning to tell the difference between fear that's protecting you and fear that's costing you money. If you're a serious recreational player, you should have somewhere between 20 to 30 full buy-ins dedicated to poker before making a stake your regular game. At 2-5 with a $500 buy-in, that's roughly $10,000 to $15,000. And that's just the baseline. It's not even a guarantee. If poker money touches your living expenses, you need substantially more. And if losing 2 buy-ins tonight would affect your ability to pay rent, buy food, that fear is telling you something important. No amount of confidence or self-positive talk fixes an underrolled shot. But the fear that talks you out of a completely standard profitable bluff because the number just feels too big, that fear isn't really protecting you. That's fear pretending to be disciplined. The key skill here is learning to tell the difference between those two kind of fears. If you want to fix it, this is what you do. And this fix, you have to do it before you even sit down, not during the game. Set aside a specific allocation for the shot that you're going to take at the higher stake. Let's say 4 buy-ins at 2.5. That's the full price of the experiment for the shot taking. Don't risk your bankroll. Never do that. Now set 2 ejection triggers while you're still thinking clearly and you're not in the game. The first one is financial. A bankroll number that automatically sends you right back down to 1.3. In this case, 4 buy-ins at 2.5. You're not going to negotiate with that. The second is psychological. Something like if you find yourself skipping 2 profitable plays in one session because the money suddenly felt too important, you're out. You're going to stop play. You're going to rack up. You're going to go home. That's your signal to leave. You have to set these 2 red lines before you even sit down at the game because you really can't negotiate honestly with yourself after you're already stuck and in the game. Then, when a big decision comes during the hand, you play the hand and afterwards you run forwards in your head. Price, range, purpose, execute. Basically, what does the price tell me to do? What does the math require me to do? Range. What does this specific villain actually get here with? What's his range look like? Purpose. Are you betting for value or are you trying to make better hands fold? What are you doing here? What are you trying to achieve in this hand? Execute. Put the plan in action. Let the cards fall as they may. Forget variance. You made the financial decisions before you even sat down. Don't reopen that issue when you're in the hand. Write those 2 numbers that we talked about earlier on a card before your next session and put it in your pocket. Your shot allocation number and your automatic move down number. Keep it in your pocket, and the first time you're faced with a big decision and you're in a tough spot after the hand, pull it out and run those 4 words in your head. Price, range, purpose, execute. Remember, you made the financial decisions before you even sat down. That issue is dealt with so you can relax. Now, all that's left is playing poker and making plus EV decisions consistently. This is exactly the kind of transformation I help players make every day. Not by teaching a few tricks or fancy plays, but by changing the way they think about poker decisions. Once that shift happens in your mind, everything else starts to improve. Your decision-making becomes clearer, your confidence becomes earned instead of forced, and your win rates will follow. If you'd like to see what that looks like for your own game, let's talk. I offer a free one-on-one coaching session where we'll look at your game together, identify where your biggest leaks are coming from, and map out exactly what you should be working on next to get your game to the level that you want it to be. Just click on the link in the description below or scan this QR code on the screen to book your free session while the spots are still available. Confidence at higher stakes isn't a feeling that you talk yourself into. It's evidence you built one correctly executed decision at a time. If you want to keep building that evidence and keep improving your game, watch this next video. Until then, keep crushing out there, and if you'd like to talk through your own game with me directly, reach out to me on WhatsApp, scan the QR code, or click the link below. As always, I'm your friend Vinton. GG.